Thank you for listening to JC Radio Podcast. We're fans of music, movies, shows, and all things entertainment. Oh, what's up, guys? This is John from JC Radio, JC Interviews, here with the amazing Gary Galeski. How you doing, man?
Doing great, thanks.
That's cool, man. So, Gary, some of you actually may not know. Well, first of all, Gary and I are good friends. We went to high school together.
Yep.
Ish. So
Ish. I don't know about that. We were together.
No, we were together.
Yeah.
Just, I showed up a year before you.
True.
And then I left before you. So, it was like that middle ground, though.
Yeah. We hung out afterwards, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, obviously. So,
Known each other for years, I mean.
I was one of your groomsmen at your wedding, so I hope we're still friends.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's logistics. You just wrote a book.
Yeah, I did. Been working on it for about a year. It's getting ready to come out, hopefully in about a day or so.
Really?
Yep. It's called Time for Chaos. It's a dystopian thriller. It's a look at what would happen if one day we woke up and suddenly everything that would use electricity completely stopped working.
Okay.
And so then it goes through the journey of a young family trying to get from St. Louis out here. This is the area I based most of the plot or most of the setting off of.
Okay.
And it just kind of chronicles that journey and then what happens once they actually get out to this area.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So for those that don't know, right now, usually I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. We're actually in Fulton, Missouri right now. So the book takes place in St. Louis, Missouri, and they're trying to get to basically the mid-Missouri Fulton area.
Correct. Yes. The book starts out in specifically actually Florissant, Missouri, which is where I live currently, right, which you know. And then it goes along I-70 for about the first couple of chapters, and then the rest of the book takes place in a combination of Oz, Missouri, and then stretches out all the way to Hams Prairie, Missouri as well.
So a lot of it is just, I assume a lot of the influences came from where you live then, just your whole life.
Absolutely.
Is that just because this is all you know, or is the book kind of like a paradox of what you have experienced through your life?
Well, I think part of it was just, writing what you know. This is my first, I've never written a book before. So getting to the point where I was comfortable with doing something else took me a little bit, so I wanted to go with what I knew. I got you.
Now, are there a lot of influences through your life that are put inside the book?
The characters are actually based off of a lot of my in-laws.
Are they the bad guys?
No, actually, they're the good guys.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. That's that's something I kind of wanted to showcase a little bit because in our current culture we have this. Typically, there's this idea that whenever a guy marries into a family, typically he hates his in-laws. He can't stand being around them. They're always portrayed as these horrible, terrible people.
Yeah, of course.
And while I'm sure maybe there are cases where that is that happens. Me personally, that's not what happened. My in-laws are great, and I wanted to be able to showcase that and be able to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I married into a family, and you know what? They're not crazy. Well, maybe they're crazy, but they're not bad crazy.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, you see that a lot. It's always the wife side of the family, too.
Exactly.
That makes it, kind of weird. It's just like, oh, yeah, my mother-in-law, she's crazy. I mean, I don't personally have that, I guess, point of view with the family I married into. Yeah. I mean, I think my mom is crazier than her mom. So... But it's really bad to start comparing moms because somebody you get slapped by somebody.
Yeah, that's a dangerous game to start playing.
Yeah, right. So, what about the other characters throughout the book? I mean, from me personally knowing you have a lot of friends. You have a lot of connections. Yeah. You have been places. You know people. Is there anybody in the book that is really just based off of a special person in your life, whether it be a friend or a family member?
Well, this is probably going to sound a little cheesy, especially for a first book, but the main character's wife is actually based off of my wife, Susan.
Of course. All right.
So, she's definitely been a big inspiration for it.
I got you. So who are the characters in this book for people that haven't read it yet, but they kind of just want to know about it?
Okay. Well, we go with just the kind of the main family block, you have the two main characters that it really focuses on are John and Ariel. And then once you start getting out into the extended family, we've got Mary, which is John's mother-in-law, and Russell, his father-in-law. And then, kind of start going out from there. And you're looking for more like just the main characters, or you want some villains as well?
Let's get some villains. People like villains.
All right. So, with this, what I wanted to do, whenever I first started writing the book, I actually initially started writing it with the idea to essentially take every post-apocalyptic movie and video game trope and kind of just hodgepodge it all together in one thing. Yeah. Got to writing it, realized it's probably not. It's a little much. There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot to go on there.
There's a lot of material. So I kind of had to dial it back a little bit. And what I ended up settling on is there's actually whenever they're first introduced, they're introduced as almost kind of a Borderlands-esque Mad Max.
I got you.
Crazy.
So
crazy
like that rundown world
exactly
type thing with now are they cannibals or
they are actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they later on they'll actually be named. I named them Screamers. So they're kind of that. I keep going back to either Mad Max or Borderlands. That the guy with the mask who always has the buzzsaw axe.
Okay,
that's kind of the idea. That's kind of the inspiration for those.
I got you.
And then they're actually part of what actually ends up becoming a cult later on in the book, which is led by this. The only two people I could ever compare them to are there was a cult leader out in Waco, Texas, back in I think it was either the late 90s or the early 2000s. It was a really, really big mess with some. Yeah, it was a bad situation. Long story short, but then also the villain for the Far Cry 5 games, that kind of charismatic preacher sort of vibe that he was going with.
I like when you talk about this, I'm picturing like the Book of Eli type deal. Maybe.
Kind of. Man, it's been a long time since I saw that.
Oh, okay. Well, we need to watch that again. Then we'll go back to that question. So we talked about who the good guys are kind of influenced by, your family and whatnot, your wife. Who are the bad guys based off of?
Well, the bad guys, like I said, are based off of a couple of, the guy from Waco, Texas, from that, there was long story short, he had this religious cult that was kind of like this isolationist, we don't want to deal with anybody.
I got you.
And the government came in and said, no, you're a cult, we're shutting you down, kind of thing. And ended up with a lot of people getting killed. And he was this just very charismatic leader who ended up being a psychopath later on, once he actually got into it. And that was really the influence for his name is Brother Jeremiah. That was the influence for Brother Jeremiah, because I wanted to have this very calm, collected preacher outlook, on the outside is what he looked like. So, very inviting, draws you in. Yeah. But then later on, once you actually are there,
get to know him.
Once you get to know him, then you realize, oh wait, this guy is crazy. He will do anything to get what he wants.
Man, that's crazy, man. So, but no friends or anything based off of any villains or
no,
not.
No, haven't really had any friends that any villains that I was going to base off friends or anything like that.
No, okay. Maybe in a future book, be like, maybe this guy is a little crazy. Maybe.
Well, I mean the sequel, yes, there are actually two villains in there that are based off of based off of in-laws.
Oh, there you go. There it is.
Yeah, that one. But
so there is going to be a sequel to the book.
Yes, I'm actually about 3/4 of the way through the first draft.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How many? Is this going to be a trilogy?
I'm thinking probably 4 books.
Really?
With this one, what I'm kind of looking at with it is the first book, A Time for Chaos, kind of sets the stage. It introduces you to the world, and then kind of gets you where you're like, okay, well, what's going on? And then the second book, A Time for War, is really kind of ramps up the stakes. Man. It starts, the first book whenever I started writing it, I was trying to go as close to reality as possible.
I got you.
And actually a lot of the solutions that I find for different problems that the characters face, I've actually gone out and researched, okay, can I do this and will this actually work?
I got you.
So like one of the examples I have in there is there being John and Russell are going out to get a couple of family members that were stranded after the blackout.
Okay.
And whenever they find these family members, they actually find out that the family have been barricaded inside their own house because there's one of these crate.
Yeah.
Well, this one is actually he isn't actually a screamer because he's still got his mental facilities because he's able to use a firearm well.
Okay.
Because the screamers, the way they're kind of like rabid dogs, but some of them can still use guns, but they're not very good at it. But then later on, in the second book, that's when I'll actually be introducing the members of the cult that are actually able to really be able to
be functional.
Exactly.
I got you. That's really cool, man. So we have a time for chaos, a time for war. Is there going to be a time for peace at all in any of these, or?
I think I don't know if it's going to be a time for peace. The fourth book's probably going to be a time to rebuild.
That's cool. See, that makes me wonder what the third book's going to be like.
The third book is going to be a time for madness. And
dude,
yeah, that one is actually one I'm really, really excited to get working on after I get this one knocked out.
I got you.
So that one is actually going to go back in time, and it's going to look at how Brother Jeremiah started. It's going to look at what influenced him to become the cult leader he will eventually become.
So you already got the storylines and everything in your head. You just got to write it down on paper and.
Yep.
That's really awesome. So let's talk about
for the first three. I haven't gotten to the fourth.
The fourth one yet. I'm sure it'll come.
Oh yeah, eventually.
So let's talk about the artwork on the first one. I got a very adventurous feeling from the artwork from it.
Yeah,
it made me feel like I don't know how else to say it. It was like a mystical, adventurous feeling, like not quite Lord of the Rings, but more of like a modern mystic era.
Okay.
So what was I don't know if that's what you were going for.
Well, I was more actually going more towards the cultist vibe than I was for the mystical.
I got you.
Because I really wanted to showcase the cult and what they're capable of.
I got the post-apocalyptic vibe from that. Yeah. I mean, if that's what you know. But with the influence for the artwork, where did that come from?
Well, it's. I mean, I didn't personally actually create the artwork.
Okay. So
I was able to find a cover designer who's been amazing to work with. Just anything I need, she's willing to work with me.
All right.
And essentially what she had me do is she had me look through a bunch of, I guess you could say, stock photos, really, and say, okay, out of these photos, what would work for your book? Okay. And whenever I came across that photo, I knew that was the one for it.
All right.
Because one of the things I really wanted to do was make sure that the cult was really shown as this force that was a force to be reckoned with.
Okay.
I want them to be this power that is going to cause problems in the future. And, later on, actually in the second book, is where it starts getting really crazy.
I got you.
It's the first book, like I was saying, really kind of starts out in that realistic vibe. And then as the book goes on, once you hit the end, then you're like, okay, well, we're not in realism anymore. We're in science fiction.
Man.
So, a little bit of a spoiler, but not too much. By the end of the book, we've met aliens.
What the heck?
Yeah.
See, I haven't. And you said that was in the second book?
No, that's the first one.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
See, I haven't finished the first one yet.
Yeah, we have met intelligent life out there, and I'll leave it up to you to decide whether or not you think it's hostile or not.
All right. So. See, that's crazy. I'm still in the beginning part of the book. I'm a really slow reader.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I'm reading it. I was like, this is good writing. Modern day, waking up, taking your dogs out for a run. What I love about your description in the main character right off the bat in the beginning is that you get a really good sense of his personality, how he views his family, how he views the world. So I really can't wait to get to the side of the cult leader and to really see how you describe him. So, because from right now, what you're telling me, it sounds like a guy I'm going to really hate when I get there.
That's not what... Initially, I don't want you to hate him, actually.
Really?
I want you to be like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe this guy is, clearly this guy has aligned himself with some pretty nasty people. Gotcha. But maybe he has some good intentions.
Very deceptive of you, man.
Exactly. You know, I want him to be this very inviting character. You know, I want you to be able to relate to him. You know, by the end of the third book, I want you to be rooting for him.
So we got 4 books in the work.
Yes.
You have no idea what's going to happen in the 4th one.
Not yet.
But you know, with the first 3 you do know.
Yes.
Awesome. Are you excited for the artwork and everything for that? What can we expect for that?
Oh man, I haven't even gotten to that part.
Not even to that part yet? Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. Well, hey, you know, is there anything else you would like us to know about the book, or are you working on any future books aside from A Time?
I actually have I've got three other manuscripts that I've also started working on as well.
Okay.
One of them is kind of a little gutsy. You know, it's, essentially what it's looking at is one of the things I love to do with my writing is I love to be able to watch the news and be able to kind of weave current events into that. Okay. And one of the things that really struck me about a month or so ago was whenever when President Trump was talking about using an executive order to be able to build the wall, and the other side started talking about how, well, you know, if this goes through, then you know what's to stop someone from the other side put an executive order through on guns and things like that.
Yeah.
And what I was looking at with one of the other books is what would happen if something like that were to happen.
Okay.
Now, if there were to be some kind of a horrible terrorist attack where the president and the vice president are both taken out simultaneously in the same day.
Okay.
And suddenly the Speaker of the House were to come in. Which, the reason I did that was because it was the Speaker of the House who had made the comment.
I got you.
And what I was looking at was, okay, well, you know what? You know, I grew up in rural America. So did you.
Yeah,
We're from around here. And, you know, we both know how people around here would feel if suddenly the government were to come in and say, okay, we're taking your guns away.
I got you.
It wouldn't end pretty. And that book and that series really is looking at what would happen.
I got you.
You know, what would happen if there was a second American Civil War. And then to expand on that, you know, one of the things that really, I mean, I believe it personally, you know, whether or not we like it or not, we kind of play the world's policeman.
Yeah.
What happens when the police leave? You know, if we're fighting amongst each other, amongst ourselves, you know, suddenly you take the United States off the table, what happens? You know, a couple months ago, yet again, how I said I like to weave current events
on the news. You watch the news.
India and Pakistan we're about to go to war with one another. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that the United States is the one that kept them from going to war, but you know what? You take a major player off the global stage, it throws off the whole balance of power.
It's like taking the queen out of a chess match.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then seeing how that could potentially roll into a third world war.
That's crazy, man. See, and it's interesting to me. You know, I haven't really spoken to much authors as far as how, because authors are artists, man. You guys got to get into the mindset. Yep. You guys got to get your influences, just like a musician or an actual painter. And it's weird hearing the mindset of an artist because a lot of it is based off of their own lives and what they see around them, and how with a pen you can very accurately predict the outcome of a what if situation. See, and that's what really intrigues me about your book and other books that are along the lines of fiction where it's fake, and if you want you could probably have like Godzilla show up out of nowhere and like save the day. But you don't, because in this situation that's unrealistic.
Exactly.
So to have you put real events into a fiction book but still make it accurate to what would happen, I can only imagine the amount of headaches that you get. Well, because man, it's hurting my brain right now thinking about that.
You know, so this has been a huge learning process.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned with this is there's really two distinct writing styles. You've got the people who outline, and then you have the people who are what's called pantsers.
I got you.
One of the most famous pantsers is Stephen King. So essentially what he does and what I do is he says, okay, yeah, and I'm going to butcher this, but long story short, it boils down to you take your characters and you put them into situations, and then you fill in the blanks in between the situations.
Okay.
So what I do is whenever I sit down to work on a book, I have my outline, and I call them flashpoints.
I got you.
So I've got, like, A Time for War is the one I'm working on right now. I've got, I think it's 13 flashpoints in there. So a flashpoint is a very specific event that happens, and then what I do is I fill in the pieces. So whenever I sit down to write, I don't actually know what's going to come out by the time I'm done.
Okay.
So I know that this is where I'm starting, but anywhere in between start and finish, I don't actually know where I'm at until I'm finished.
That's pretty cool, man.
And it's I really think it gives a certain organic feeling to the writing, because if I don't know what the twists and turns are, then my reader's definitely not going to either.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's awesome. Well, hey, Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you
for being on the show. Check it out. Check it out. A Time for Chaos.
Yep.
It's going to be released when?
Looking at the ebook being released on Amazon tomorrow.
All right. Tomorrow being the 27th of April.
One big thing with that is anyone who does get the book and enjoys it, I would really appreciate if you were to leave some kind of review on there for me. That way, not only can I use that to make future books better,
of course,
but also the way that Amazon's algorithms work is the more reviews you have, the more exposure you get.
I gotcha. So check it out on Amazon. Time for Chaos, April 27th. Hopefully, if anything changes, we'll keep you guys updated.
Yep. I'll update Facebook and Instagram, and I'm working on getting a Twitter profile as well.
Awesome.
But right now, the only ones that I for sure have are the Facebook and Instagram.
Hopefully, when this comes out, the book will already be out and people will already be reading it. But just a reminder for everybody, check it out, read the book, check out the artwork. It is amazing. And we'll see you guys later.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, thank you.